This is the Redemption Church podcast. For a list of messages, events, sermon notes, and more, please visit experienceredemption.com. Thanks for checking out the podcast. Here is today's message.
So for a lot of you, this might be the first time you've ever been to one of our church meetings. And so I want to just talk a little bit about what we're doing up here. For the first part of it, these guys are going to stay up here with me. And I told them if they have comments or whatever, they can chime in. And as we kind of walk through our opening part of this. And for those of you who are new to Redemption over the last couple weeks or months, or I guess really the last year, and you've never been to one of these before, we do a couple of things. The first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to give just a little bit of a recap of the structure of our church. And this is a business meeting, a family meeting, and this is of course required in our bylaws. But then also it's just a really good practice to be in as a church at the beginning of the year to sit down to thank God for what He's done, and then also to talk about what the future is, and to get us all on the same page again on what God is doing here in His church. And it's important for you guys, particularly for those of you who are new, to see our elders and to understand their role, and then to understand our staff's role and those types of things. And so every year when we do this, I start off by just, again, kind of walking through that structure, because as people are new into the church, we come from a lot of different backgrounds. We know that. We're post-denominational, which typically refers to our doctrine a lot of times. But another part of that is just church structure. And so some of you may have questions about that. Do you get a vote as an attender? What are people's different roles? How does that work? Is there a board? All of those types of things. So we always start the beginning kind of walking through that. So let me explain some of that. We have 3 distinct teams as a church. And when I say teams, these are teams that are actually laid out in our bylaws. So we, of course, have lots of other teams, right? Volunteer teams and those types of things. But really 3 teams that are instituted into our church bylaws that we have to operate out of and set that up because we think it's biblical and because we think it's effective. So let me tell you the first team. The first team is our elder team. And so to my far left over here is Reed Roth, who became an elder this year. Tom Hill next, who prayed, who's been one of our founding elders. And then, of course, myself. And then over here, Frank, who is one of our founding elders as well. I told you guys if you had anything to say up front, you could say it. This would probably be the time. Reed, I told you just to sit there and look pretty, so you're killing it. Yeah, awesome. Cool. Okay. Did you have anything you wanted to say up front? Okay, awesome. So that's our elder team. Yeah. Well, you get the mic at the end, so you get to say whatever you want at the end. This is our elder team. Let's talk about elder roles, because I think this is really important to understand. So first and foremost, the way our elder team is written and understood is this. It's first spiritual oversight and health. And we really think this is the biblical foundation of what an elder is supposed to be. It's a co-laborer. It's a co-shepherd. And so some of you may have grown up in organizations where there was a board or there were trustees, and it was very organizational. There is an organizational element to our elder team, but is primarily a spiritual role. And these 3 men up here are amazing. They practice the biblical role of elder. It's not just a 1-hour meeting or whatever once a month. It's not just signing some documents. It's being a part of our church. It's leading life groups and Bible studies and counseling and praying and driving to people's houses when they need it and all of those types of things. And just so everyone is abundantly clear, these 3 men do that to an incredible level. There is no pay, I always joke, other than the Zingos. I buy them once a month, and that's it. And I do think that deserves a round of applause. And so if we could stop for a second and say thank you to these 3 guys. And so it is, first of all, it's about spiritual oversight and health. Secondly, their primary role then is to pray for and shepherd our congregation. And they do that. And I know you guys know that. It is very often where there's meetings happening in my office or around the building on a Sunday that I really don't know about. And I say that in a good way, because you have reached out to one of them to seek advice for a marriage or a job or whatever it might be. And these gentlemen do that. And then thirdly, large purchase approval. And so we're going to to get into a little bit of financial accountability and those things tonight. And so the way our system is set up is that any purchase over $10,000 has to be signed off by myself and one of the other elders. And typically we do this all of us at the same time. And so any purchase that would be over $10,000, we either bring it up in a meeting or we bring it up in an email, and it's sent out for everyone to look at and ask questions and all of those types of things. Financial oversight and accountability. I think this is unique to our church and really, really important. And that is that these three men have unfettered access to our finances. They are allowed to ask for anything at any time. And so there is nothing happens that they're not able to look at. They see what comes in, they see what goes out, they see where it's spent. The same document or software, whatever, that we use to record it, they can have access to whenever they want. And so there are always multiple eyes looking at everything. And we think that's really important. Next, purchasing property. So if we want to buy any property, that has to be approved on and voted by our elder team. Assigning pastors, I think this is something unique to us as well. And that is that if somebody is going to sit in the role of pastor, I cannot hire that independently by myself. I can't just say, hey, I want this person to be my associate pastor or the worship pastor or whatever. That has to be vetted and then voted upon by this team as well. And that happened this year. I'll get into that later. And then lastly, lead pastor accountability in conjunction with overseer team, which is a really nice way of saying if I need to get fired. They play a role in that with our overseer team, which I'll explain in a moment. And sometimes for some people, this seems like too much detail, but being around church for 20, 30 years now, as I've been, and many of you longer than that, we think this kind of transparency and letting everybody know is really, really important. A couple of the reasons I also bring this up is this. One, and I say this just for understanding, it's not appropriate to say, Frank, Tom, oh, they're your boss. Well, no, we serve on this team as equals, as elders, and so it's important to understand kind of the relationship here. And then secondly, I say that because it's not fair for you guys to go to Tom and say, hey, Tom, do you know what they're teaching in third grade? Tom's not necessarily supposed to know what is being taught in third grade around here. Or if you say like, hey, do you know what's going on with that life group? They may or may not know. And if they do or do not know, that doesn't mean there was a lack of communication or they're not doing their job or someone's not telling them. It's just the role is not to know all of the details of every little thing that is going on in the church. Their role is to hold me accountable and then to hold our overall vision and systems and those types of things. And so I always bring that up just to make sure that we're all on the same page, particularly as people enter in that are new. Now, the bigger the church gets, the more that's going on, the more that is important. And we've prayed about and worked through our system because we want a system that is biblical, where there's accountability, but that can also be efficient and effective. And so this is the system that we've arrived at. It's what we started with, but of course you make, little minor adjustments along the way. So that's our first thing. Second thing then is our staff, and I'm the only person then, and this is in our bylaws too, I'm the only person that can be both on the elder team and on our staff. Obviously, I'm the lead pastor, and there are things that are reserved for me as the lead pastor, and so this is how it's set up. Vision and direction of the church, ministry leadership and oversight, that means staff, all of those types of things, staff leadership and oversight, pastoral responsibilities like preaching, shepherding, weekly ministry, all of those things, setting the budget, handling most of the finance underneath those limits that have already been explained. And so kind of the day-to-day operations. And so I do that then with all of our staff, and our staff keeps growing. You can throw that staff slide up there. This is where we're at now. You guys probably know most of all of these people. The first time we did this business meeting, it was a really easy slide. It was me. And up to like the fourth business meeting, it was really easy because it was just me and Lindsay. And so it really is awesome to be where we're at now. So myself, James, who's our worship leader, Danae, who's over our family ministries, my dad, who's our executive pastor, Lindsay, some of you might have, your mind just might have been blown. Yes, he's my dad. Lindsay, my wife, who does our graphics and helps with worship and those types of things. Kayla, who's our discipleship director. Jennifer, who's our kids director. Jordan, who is our video and media producer. Jason, who's over all the building stuff. Jamie, who is basically everybody's assistant. Daniel, who is our youth pastor. Mike, who is, I don't know, whatever, he's our Mike, our pastoral fella, right? And then Amanda, who is our part-time staff member in our preschool ministry, and then Izzy, who is our intern. And they are an amazing, amazing team. And if we could take a second and tell them, thank you. And we are incredibly blessed to have this group of men and women. And let me just take a second and say I am blessed to work with each of these men and women. I can tell you they work very hard. They take their role very seriously. They honor the generosity that you guys showed to this church. They understand that this is a ministry, but it's still a job. They show up, they work hard, they're efficient, they're effective, but they love you guys. And they love this church, and they love Jesus, and they're honorable people. And I'm very blessed to serve alongside them. And the numbers and the things that we're going to talk about today that are really amazing. And yes, God has breathed His Spirit, and He's done amazing things, but we do know that God uses people when He does that, and He's used these 13 men and women in incredible ways. And so thank you for loving them and for being on their teams and for giving them gifts at Christmas and all of that kind of stuff because they're worth it. And they do an incredible job, all right? Next is our overseer team. And our overseer team, so for some of you who are new around here, this might be new to you. Our overseer team is, again, this is written into our bylaws. This is a group of men who do not go to our church. They intentionally do not go to our church. It's a team that will probably rotate in names every couple of years or something like that. But these are people that I'm in relationship with, that know me, that are helping hold me accountable in ministry, but outside of the day-to-day stuff here. But then also, if something bad were to happen, they have a role where they get to step in as being outside of our church and a little more impartial to the, if you've ever seen church drama, right? To the drama, and they can step in with level heads and help navigate if something were to go bad. And so they play a role. And here are the three men on this team. Kyle Brownlee, who's a pastor about an hour that way in Defiance. Rob McCoy, who's our good friend. That spoke at the conference last year as a pastor out in California and one of the directors of TPUSA Faith. And then Dennis Ditto, who's a retired pastor who went to our church for a long time and then moved down to Kentucky a couple years ago. And these men faithfully serve our church. They're good friends to me. They're people I can reach out to if I need to talk to somebody outside of this body and all of that kind of stuff. They have two jobs. And whenever I ask them this, that's what I tell them. I say, I call them up. I say, you have two jobs. Number one, if I need to get fired, you need to fire me if it's right. Or two, you need to defend me if it's right. But whatever one is right, do that. And then secondly, you guys get to determine how much money I make. And so that's the role that they play. And we made that switch about a year and a half ago where these men actually determine what my salary is. This is common practice in church. And within the structure of our church, there's still guidelines that has to fit in. But the idea behind that is as outside guys who are in church, who know ministry, this kind of thing, it also creates a bit of a distance. Let me just say it very bluntly, not that I am this way at all in any way whatsoever, but what we kind of determined was if I was going to get upset about somebody over my salary, it'd be better that they're not in the church, right? And I'm not in meetings with them all the time. And so we kind of brought this practice in as a way of creating and keeping that kind of peer relationship here. But then there is accountability and other things that play into that. So that's really all we'll say about that. That's their two roles. And let me tell you about one last team. This team is not in our bylaws, but it is important. And it is our financial accountability. And I want to hit that before we get into numbers so that you guys, particularly those who are new, can learn about this. We have 4 layers of financial accountability around here. Number one is our category spending. And they should throw up a screen here on a breakdown of how we spend our money by category. And so here it is. If you're new around here, this will be your first time you've ever seen this. And so the red part of the pie is personnel or payroll, 35%. Then yellow is building, 35%. The ministry is 20%. And the family fund is 10%. And I'm going to show you, this is in our bylaws. And so we operate this. We have operated off of this by 8 years. years. I'll show you that tonight. And we bring this up every year because we want to tell you this is how we're supposed to do it, and then we show you that that's how we did it. So that way you guys can trust. And if we're ever outside of that, then we'll come and tell you why we were outside of it, if we needed to be outside of it, and that all of us approved us being outside of it. But we think this is layer one of accountability. It's us every year saying, this is what we do, and then having to show up to next year's meeting and saying, we did what we told you we were going to do. Okay? Next, our elder team, as I said already, they have carte blanche over, they can look at everything, right? Full access. We have a financial accountability team. I think this is, again, unique to our church. There are 2 individuals in our church. They're just like you guys, everyday attenders. They faithfully give. They faithfully serve. They go here. They're in Bible studies, life groups. One of them comes in and checks every expense, and views them all. And so if there's a weird expense on there or something goofy was happening, one of you would be in there looking at it, coming out and going, hey, hold on, what's that? All right. Then there's another layer where another individual on our team who's an accountant and comes in at the end of the year and does basically a full audit of our books and looks through everything and makes sure that there is nothing out of line. Looks through the bank records, looks through everything, right, that we have, and does a full audit at the end of the year to make sure that everything's there. Number 4, fourth layer of financial accountability is just what we call our GET principles. We got to get money right. Generous, efficient, and transparent. And so we always want to be generous. That's why we have our family fund. We always want to be efficient. I'll explain that more. And we always want to be transparent. That's why we always have this meeting, whether we have huge announcements or not, so that you guys know the money you're giving is being faithfully stewarded to build the kingdom of God, which is why you gave it. And it means a lot to us. Okay, that's my opening intro. But really, kind of the bulk. I do need a drink. It's water. Go Bucks. Okay, guys, anything to add? Reed, you're still looking pretty. Good work.
I totally look nice.
Yeah. Frank, anything to add? Okay, awesome. You guys can grab a seat. I'm going to go through some of the highlights here. Frank, I'll let you know when to come back up to lead us through communion. And we'll go through there. Okay. Awesome. All right, guys, we're going to go through some 2024 highlights. Gosh, last year was an awesome year for us as a church. And I think we can all sense this on Sunday mornings. God is on the move, and he is up to something in this body. And praise God that he is. And praise God that we get to be a part of it. And it has been just another incredible year. And so I want to walk you through some numbers. If you're like, I don't know if I like numbers. Well, you shouldn't come to the business meeting then, okay? Because that's what it is. So let's go through some numbers here. Let's start with attendance. All right, and so 2023, our average adult attendance was 600. 2024, 720 adults, and so 20% growth year to year. That's January through the end of December. Adult or kid attendance is pretty similar, almost 20%. Total attendance, almost 20%. And so if you look at the entire year of 2023, January, our growth season, by the way, is always in October and November. So if you look at 23 to 24, we grew basically by 20%, and by the end of 2024, we could very safely say that we are now a church of about 1,000 to 1,100 people, okay? And praise God for that, and just the way that we have grown. I'll say that 20% growth, that's almost 3 years in a row. This is the bottom, and I think the top was 28%. And so just 3 years in a row, God is, and I just love that God is like faithfully growing us at a very good clip where we can control it. It's manageable, it's good, it's healthy, all of that kind of stuff. And I know many of you were part of that growth, and so I'm glad you're here tonight, and praise God for it. A lot of that came out of our big push in November. And so when we do these big push, the Got Questions series, Heaven, Hell, Angels, Demons, Second Coming, all of that kind of stuff, these things work, and that's why we do them, and we saw a huge bump in there. And then naturally, of course, just people inviting friends and everything like that. And so praise God. So if somebody asks you, like, oh, I don't know, how big is Redemption? You can say we're about a church of 1,000, okay? And by the way, I can tell you this, because I've been doing this for almost 20 years. These are the most accurate church numbers in America, okay? I promise you. Like, if we were a normal church, we'd be telling people we were pushing 1,500 right now, right? Like, and you think I'm kidding? I'm not. Like, church, dude, pastors lie about church numbers all the time. right? They're like, okay, count the band, all 5 services. Like, you only have 3. I know, but they had practice. Count them again, right? And we don't do that because it's not helpful. And so we actually count the human beings and the adults that are in the auditorium every single week by this, right? And we don't count duplicates. And we're really like, I don't know. Like, we'll pop in. I'm like, Dad, they were sitting in the second row. You got to cut them off, right? Like, they were there both services. Like, it is as accurate as can be because we want to be honest, but we also want to, like, have real numbers because that's how you make decisions, okay? Secondly, let's talk about giving then. 20% attendance growth. Here's the giving. Guys, this is an amazing number. 2023, 2.2. 2024, we just crossed $3 million in giving, which is amazing. Woo. Thank you. 20% attendance growth and 32% giving growth is not a normal thing. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you guys. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you for faithfully giving. This is kind of a crazy number. December was $520,000. Yeah, which is amazing. And December was higher than any of our first 4 years. Isn't that crazy? Crazy. And just amazing. And December is always a little bigger, of course, but it was much bigger this year. And so thank you guys. And $3 million is, I mean, it's a big number, and we're so grateful. And so that's how much we brought in, $3,2,667, 33 or 32% growth. Let me tell you how we spent it, all right? Next, okay. So let me just work through this here. Personnel, you're going to see 27%. Our target is 35%. And so we even came like 20% under our target. I can tell you, for churches our size and budget, average is like 45%. Okay, 45%. And so we are unbelievably efficient around here. And that is to our staff's credit. They're amazing people. I'll talk a little bit why I think that is in a second. Building, 28%. Ministry, 10%. Okay, so building target is 35. We spent 28. I'll explain that. Ministry target is 20. You know what's funny about this ministry thing? Our target has been 20% for 8 years. And every single time we've been somewhere between 9.8 and 10.7. Because we just don't start doing stupid things because the church got bigger, right? Family fund, right around 10% always. That 0.5 just means that we spent some of the money that we carried over from last year. Improvements, 12.3%, and then savings, 12%. So this is how the $3 million was broken down last year. I want to go into the details of some of this a little bit. So let's go to the next slide after this. Building, we spent 28.3%. So we spent $840,000 out of a total of $1.054 million. Now, here's the deal on this. Out of that $840,000, this is really, really important to understand. Next slide. $720,000 of that was extra money going toward the paying off the building, okay, and writing that check. I bring this up to let you know how we operate. We could cloak things and stand in front of you guys and say, hey, we have to do a new parking lot. We need money. Parking lots are expensive, right? And keep paying away minimum payments and then standing up here and begging you guys for money for a parking lot and sitting on $720,000. We could do that and just never tell you, right? But I wouldn't be able to sleep and Tom would hit me. So we do what we would do in our own homes. And we would do what we would do if God was watching us, because he is. So we wrote the check and we paid off the building and we were going into 2025 debt-free, right? So that's where that 840. Now, some of you are already going, well, what about next year? Because you don't have to do that next year. No, we don't. Stay tuned. Okay, next. Ministry, 10%, target 602, actuals 303. Okay, why can we do this? Why can we do this? Let me give you 3 reasons. Number 1, Simple but meaningful. It's one of our values. It's important. Simple but meaningful. I explain that often, okay? On our stage right now, listen, I use this example all the time. That screen right there. How many of you went to Christmas in the Barn? Raise your hand if you went to Christmas in the Barn. Okay, some of you know what I'm talking about, Christmas in the Barn. We bought this screen for Christmas in the Barn in 2018. We paid $600 for it. We are still using it 6 years later. You could walk into churches in Toledo and the same thing, slides on a screen, would be $250,000. I'm not making that up, okay? This one's working. So we're going to keep using it. Though, if we buy a new one, I will tell you, it might cost like $1,000, all right? Simple but meaningful. None of you have told me you're leaving the church because of the screen, right? And that's in part why we can do it, okay? Secondly, groups versus ministry. Churches have a tendency as they grow to say, well, there's money, we should spend it, right? Sounds like the government, right? And so, no. Like, I don't care how much money. If it's a bad decision, it's a bad decision. No matter how much money you have. If it's not in line with our vision, it's not in line with our vision. If it's not in line with our values, it's not in line with our values, right? And so groups versus ministries, it's an important philosophy around here. We have great ministries. Worship, kids, youth, groups, Wednesday nights, all of these. They're amazing ministries. And that's what we do around here. And we're going to keep pouring our energy into that. And everything else we say, start a life group, start a life group, start a life group, start a life group. Why? Because if you had ministries, then you had staff members, then you had expense accounts, then you had secretaries, then you had this, then you had this, then you had this, then you had that. And then all of a sudden we're standing in front of you and saying, we need money for a parking lot. Right? And so instead of creating a problem, we're just being wise before the problem gets started. Okay? And so that's what we can do is, number 3, of course, no coffee. Right? Now, if you wanna get into the coffee fight, just follow Michelle Fox on Facebook, who is master trolling me right now on Facebook in her quest for coffee at Redemption Church. And let me tell you, when I say no coffee kind of, here's what I mean. Obviously, we can afford coffee at this point, okay? But the value is this. Don't create expectations that you then have to continue to meet. And so you start with coffee, but then it could turn into something else. And just use that as a philosophy on everything. Okay, and so that's why we don't do things. We say don't get into the habits where then you have to spend money every time. You have to do this every time. This has to get bigger. That has to get larger. That has to get more fancy. All of that kind of stuff. Okay, and so that's part of our philosophy around here. And so that's why we then can take that money and do other things with it. All right, next. Family fund giving. This, I think, is amazing. I wish every church in America did this, and we're going to keep talking about it until they do. We gave away $374,000 this year, guys. And we gave it away. Yeah, I think it's awesome. We served 136 families directly in our church. And so we blessed them, or we paid something, or we supported them, and we have a process for this. I always say every legitimate need has ever been met. And I think that the church's primary financial responsibility is to take care of the needs within their own church. That's number one. I think that's biblical. Everything else is secondary. And so for 8 years, we've always said yes to every legitimate need, and we always will, right? But then we also have blessed 21 organizations outside of our church to that tune, which is, I think, incredible. Okay, next, improvements. These are improvements that happened this year. So not only did we pay off the building $700,000, we also spent $366,000 on improvements on this building without really telling anybody. So restrooms, conference room, youth room, classrooms, HVAC, $53,000, mystery purchase, $225,000. It is not a mystery to the people who need to know, and I will explain what it is in a second. I just didn't want to explain it in this slide, okay? So it's not a mystery. Only for 9 seconds. Okay. So we also spent $350,000 upgrading this building, guys. Okay, next slide. Okay, other numbers here. Guys, we had 62 baptisms and 31 baby dedications this year. And I just like that the math of that is so pleasing. 62 baptisms, how cool. And some of the most powerful and fun stories this year. Just incredible. 31 baby dedications. Discipleship. We had so many cool things happening this year. You can go to that slide, the discipleship slide. Youth ministry. I'm just kidding. Go to that slide. Here's some fun things. 21 kids on junior Bible quiz, 187 kids at VBS, 29 students went to camp, 33 students went to fall retreat. We hired a full-time youth pastor this year. I think our youth ministry and our kids ministry are in the best spot that they've ever been in our church, and just amazing things going on in both our family and our kids ministry. If we could tell Danae, Jen, and Daniel, thank you real quick for the incredible work that those guys are doing. Now we'll get to some fun discipleship stuff. Guys, we did a lot last year. We launched the Clear Truth Conference. We launched our Partnership Track 2. We had our Marriage Conference. We started Wednesday Night Church. We hired a full-time youth pastor. We added a mic, okay? This is great. He doesn't get the microphone for a long time, too. So I get to say whatever I want this year. Great. So those were disciples. Guys, this is stuff that, this is all in 1 year. That God did all of these things. And it's just awesome. Missions this year, money that went directly to organizations and missions, $10,000 or so, almost $11,000 to Bella Vita, over $7,000 to King of Glory in Israel, and then $25,000 that I shared around Christmas to Christ the King Church. And so these are just ways that we supported missions around our state and our city, and we'll continue a lot of those efforts. I think is that it? 2025, new year. So let's just stop for a second and say thank you, Lord, for everything that happened in 2024. Amen. Incredible stuff, guys. We're so blessed by what happened last year. So now we're going into a new year. I want to walk through this stuff. By the way, there's a handout. You'll get this on your way out, okay? I didn't give it to you on the way in because then I don't need to be up here. So you'll get this on your way out. We're also recording this. We're going to send it out in email tonight or tomorrow, okay? 2025, let me walk you through a couple of things so you know. First, we've set our budget for 2025 at $210,000 a month. $210,000 a month. If you're doing the math at home, that is $2,560,000, I think. I just did that in my head. I think so. Yep, 2.56, which is $500,000 under our 2024 giving, okay? And we do that on purpose. You can say we're planning for a recession. You can say we're planning for something happening. We don't go, we were 3 million. We've been at least 20% growth, so let's do 3.6. That's not how we operate. So our budget is set at 2.5, okay, for the year. And again, that'll get broken down into our 35, 35, 20, and 10 categories. A couple of things that are important to me just to lay out to all of you guys. First, I want you to know, when I went to the 26.8% on efficiency in our staff, some of you are like, wow, are you paying these guys nothing? No, every employee every year has always gotten a raise. Okay, and it's important for me to communicate that because I think you guys need to know what we're trying to create and the entity that we are. And so this year, every employee got a raise. We are not planning on any new hires this year. That may change, of course, if things happen or whatever. But that is the plan going into the year. So that's kind of the plan and the budget. And so I know some of you are thinking, okay, so I saw last year's numbers. I saw this year's numbers. We don't have to spend $700,000 paying off the budget. So if there is 30% savings, 40, what are we going to do? Well, a couple things. One, we do have to spend $300,000 on the parking lot. Okay, so there's that. Two, there's a little bit of a buffer in our savings. We're in a good spot, I promise you. But there's a little bit of a buffer that I wouldn't mind rebuilding after paying off the building and some other things. Three, well, I'll get to that in a second. Okay. Next. What's next? Missions 2025. We're going to continue on with our support of Bella Vita, $1,000 a month. Support of our church in Israel, $400 a month. So we're going to keep doing that stuff. Okay, here's a new thing this year. This is new to 2025 for the whole calendar year. And I'm really excited about this. And we've decided as a team that what we're going to do for from here on out is we're going to allocate a certain amount of dollars every year to support churches outside of Redemption. And I always say, if the NFL can do revenue sharing, so can we. And what I mean by that is we need to be wise, just like our family fund. But we want to champion churches helping churches. It's in the scriptures, guys. and coming alongside churches, not churches that are failing because of bad leadership, but churches that if we could come in alongside and help them, they could do new things and greater things for the kingdom of God. And so we want to champion doing that. And so for the next, so this is what we're committing to. We're committing to $6,300 a month that we are going to set aside. It's 3% of our budget that we are going to set aside, and we are going to say this money is going to be used strategically to support the kingdom of God in Bible-believing, clear truth churches across the state and across the country. Okay? And we're setting that money aside to do that. And we're going to look for opportunities, and we're going to be bold about it, and we're going to look for churches and say, hey, you have an initiative, you have something, we want to come in, we want to help you. Okay? You know what's really cool, guys? Look at what our old mortgage payment was. $62.88. Isn't that amazing? $12 off, right? Tom said he'd cover it. And so I just think that's cool. That when God gives you an idea, he shows you immediately, we're done with the mortgage, right? So let's go find something fun to do with this money. Dave Ramsey says in Baby Step 7, right? This is when you get to have all the fun. And I guess as a church, we're in Baby Step 7. And so we get to have fun. We get to call other churches and say, gosh, it seems like something awesome is happening in your church. Do you have enough money? And can we help? You know how many times people have called me to say that? 0. Yeah, 0. So let's be the church that Jesus came to plant. That's our vision. And I think the church that Jesus came to plant did this all over the New Testament. And so I think we get to do it now, and I think it's going to be really, really fun. And I look forward to sharing the stories with you guys. Okay? Let's talk about buildings and grounds. Here's what's coming in 2025. Drum roll, please. New parking lot. Yay! We love parking lots. You will not have to park in the mud anymore. Guys, this is going to cost $300,000 to $400,000. Isn't that crazy? For 50 spots. Yeah, the county's making us build a stupid retention pond, too, behind it. It's going to be expensive, but we need it. And so we've got the money, and so we're going to do it, okay? And so we will kick off a parking lot expansion in, probably March or so, whenever we're breaking ground next year. Next, it's finally coming, the walking trail, okay? So we announced this 2 years ago at this meeting, but it took us 2 years to finally figure out with the county engineers and architects and all of that kind of stuff what our grounds can look like and easements and all of those kind of things. And so the plan is that we're going to put a walking trail in around the perimeter of our land so that you guys can come here and you can take your strollers, you can take your whatever, you can after church or whatever, and you can walk the grounds, okay? And then some of you guys who are Pentecostal, you can walk and pray the grounds, okay? All right? Let's go. You know, like the, what do you call those in the pool? A whirlpool? Okay, we're going to create a spiritual whirlpool. Just walking, right? But I think this is going to be really fun, and we're really looking forward to having that walking trail in the community that it can build here at the church. All right, this next thing in 2025 is the question that a lot of people have been asking me. Are we going to add on? What's going to happen next? Are we out of space? When are we going to 3 services? La-di-da-di-da. You saw all the growth. So here's what I would say. You can go to that next slide. It's definitely time to call an architect, okay? And here's what I mean by that. We need to seriously have conversations about adding on to this building. We are running out of space. And you guys see it in our 2 services. The next step is to go to 3 services. I do believe that we can hold off to the fall, okay? Which means you guys need to sit real close to each other on Sunday mornings, okay? You do. But I think we can hold off to the fall. The next step would be to go to 3 services, and we have begun to commission architects and engineers to lay out drawings of what this would look like to add on to this building. I've said from the beginning, it is only worth adding on to the building if we can add 1,200 seats. This is 600 seats. There's no reason to add money. This is like Church 101. There's no reason to spend a bunch of money unless you can double in size. Okay, so that means we need to go to a 1,200-seat auditorium. In order to get a 1,200-seat auditorium, we have to have a minimum of 22 to 24,000 square feet in an add-on building. Just so we're all clear, in total project costs, we're talking somewhere between $6.5 to $8 million. Okay, it's a lot of money. And so whoever's got that check, just let me know after service. Literally sooner the better, actually. Here's my request. Just be praying and just be preparing. And at the right time, we trust God has done this for 8 years. We can trust from here on out. God will send the right people. He'll plant the right things in our hearts. He'll do the right things in our lives to get us there when we need to get there. Okay? And so I'm telling you right now, from our perspective right now, there's only 3 options, right? From growth. Option 1 is to add on this building. Option 2 is to start a campus. Option 3 is to move off of this property. Those are the only 3 options. And so option 1 is our favorite option right now. We're praying about everything, though. And we're saying, God, what would you want us to do? This isn't our church. It's his, right? And so he gets to tell us what to do. We don't get to tell him what to do, even if it's our favorite thing. And so I want you to know, as an elder team, we're open-handed. We're saying, God, you tell us what to do. But if option 1 happens, that's what it's going to cost. And so sometime in the next 12 to 18 months, I would stand in front of you and say, guys, we need to raise $2, $3, $4 million. And we got to do it together. And we got to write some big checks, some really big checks in order to do it. And I will promise you this, Lindsay and I will go first. I promise you that. When it comes to that, Lindsay and I will go first. And for the last 3 years, we've been setting money aside. We've been setting money aside. Because if this happens, we know it's our job to go first. And then we'll stand in front of you, and we'll ask you guys to come with us and to get us there so that we can do this and God can continue to move and continue to do what he's doing. So that's where we're at, okay? And I think it's fun. I think it's exciting. And we'll see what God does over these next couple of years. Next thing is this, Mayflower 2.0. Okay, this is fun. You know that house that you drive by when you come into the building? Like right over there? Okay, we bought it. All right? And guess how much it cost? $225,000, right? You saw it, right? And that was the mystery purchase, just so we're all clear, right? I didn't get an Escalade. It was a house out there. And we bought it. We bought it, elders. We talked, we prayed, we negotiated all of these things. And we really felt like it was the right decision to purchase that property, to square out our property, to potentially use it. Gosh, guys, there's been a lot of discussion. It could be an offices. It could be an outbuilding for classrooms. If Lindsay gets her way, it'll be a coffee shop, right? Which seems to be the most popular of the 3. It could be the beginning of our end of times bunker. Okay, like we don't know, but we felt like it was the right thing to buy it, and to square off our property, and then to see what God would have us do with it. The tenants are still in there for now, just so you know. They should be exiting sometime in the next couple weeks. We're being very patient and having good conversations, all that kind of stuff. And then we'll figure out exactly what we need it for. But I always say this: obedience now leads to protection later. And so we're just trusting that if God told us to buy it, he's going to reveal exactly why in due time. And we have plenty of ideas, trust me, no shortage of ideas. But at the moment when we possess it, and it becomes like the tenants are out, and we begin to pray and say, God, what exactly do you want us to do with it? We'll let you know, okay? All right, Discipleship 2025. A couple of things going on. Wednesday night service. We're going to be launching Wednesday night a week from today. I want you to know we're kind of revamping Wednesday nights. And so Wednesday nights for everybody except our youth group, 9th through 12th. For everybody else, first semester it was 90 minutes. Now it's actually only going to be 60 minutes, okay? For kids and for adults, we're going to tighten that up a little bit, but youth will go the full 90 minutes. We're going to switch it up a little bit on how we're doing it. And so particularly for adults, you're going to come in here, directly in here. Everyone will go directly to their rooms. Adults will be in here. We're going to preach this semester through all of Psalm 119, which I'm really excited about. I think it's going to be a really fun semester preaching through Psalm 119. But here's what we're going to do. Lindsay's actually going to be leading worship on Wednesday nights. She's going to lead us through 2 or 3 hymns. We're going to take communion together. We're going to pray, and then someone's going to come up and teach through Psalm 119. Okay? And it's an intentionally different service from the weekend, but I think it's going to be really rich really meaningful, really simple, but a really, really good gathering for us as a church family. And so come and join us on Wednesday nights as we study the Word together, take communion, pray, and sing some old hymns together, okay? And then kids will be in their rooms, youth, JBQ, all of the other things will continue to be going on. That starts next week. I'm so glad that we are a church that does Wednesday night church. Marriage groups are launching all over the place. If you need to get in a marriage group, let us know. We've got plenty of groups. Something else we want to start this year. Mike and Sherry are going to run some, basically like some training for couples who want to be mentor couples. And so if you think God has put you and your spouse in a position to mentor other marriages, let us know. And we want to begin to walk you through some training. I'll tell you what, every pastor I talk to, and I would echo this, every church, what's your biggest issue? Marriage. 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 It's just the world hates it. And there's an all-out attack on it. And so we want to make sure that we uphold strong marriages in our church. Okay, and I think that's an incredible way that you guys can disciple each other. And so if you think being like a mentor couple, please let us know. We'd love to put you through that training and then start releasing people to do those types of things. So that's going to be new. Partnership Track 2, we recorded that early in 2024. We're going to release that and start running classes on that just like we did Partnership Track 1. And so we'll let you know about that as well. A couple of big dates for you to know about coming up here. A couple of fun things. Urban Air Night is coming back. Yay. All right. If you're new around here, we do Urban Air Night once a year. It's super fun, totally free, and only redemption people, okay? And then all the people who think they're redemption people and come only to Urban Air Night, all right? But it's totally free. Bring your kids, bring your grandkids. It's 5 to 7:30 on February 3rd. That's a Monday night. You'll be free. Socks will be free. The concession stand will be open if you want to buy dinner. But this is just a really fun night for us as a church. It's literally the easiest event in the world for us as a church because we don't have to do anything. But we just get to show up, hang out, play, have fun, all of that kind of stuff. So I hope you guys will join us. For some reason, this is the easiest event to promote. Right? Everyone's like, oh, a free night where my kids get to do stuff. I'm in, right? So come and join us for that. Get it on the calendar. Next, Dangerous Friends. Goodness gracious, I'm so excited. It's going to be so much fun. We have 2 new Dangerous Friends to announce tonight. Number 1, John Roseman. Okay, listen, this guy, I believe, is the leading parent expert that I know of. His book on parenting is, I think it's a life changer. And he is amazing. And so parents, this is worth it. This guy's awesome. And so he's going to be here. He's going to be on a panel, and he's going to do a full session. And then for those of you guys who were here last year, returning now, our friend Rob McCoy. All right? Rob is awesome. And I'm so excited that he agreed to come back. And so he's going to be with us Friday night. It'll be Rob, and we still don't know who TPUSA is sending, okay? I don't know. I don't want to send out false messages. And so we'll see when they show up. I mean, like I told you, probably Lucas, maybe Riley, if we're really lucky, Charlie. I don't know if you've heard, but Charlie Kirk is kind of a big deal all of a sudden. I literally was talking to Lucas the other day. I'm like, yeah, like, you guys, what do you think? And he's like, I don't know. Charlie's in Greenland right now negotiating something. I'm like, buying it? Like what? Like, what are we negotiating right now in Greenland? So, who knows? We'll see what happens. Either way, whoever it is, it's going to be an awesome 2 days, guys. Come and join us. Let's hang out. Let's celebrate. Invite friends from other churches because we want to expose people to what we think God is doing around here. Okay? All right. Next, Good Friday service. We're going to bring that back, which is super fun. 6 o'clock. You can put that in your calendar. Last but not least, whatever it is, Church Week is coming back. Okay? So you can put that on for your vacation planning, July 1st through July 24th. I know one of the speakers for Church Week, Wednesday night of Church Week, Andrew Cedra. He's an Australian pastor. I've talked about him a little bit, maybe not by name. Dude is on fire. Listen, we think America went woke. Dude, Australia, it's like California, right? I mean, worse. It really is. It's bad. It's really bad. And I mean, and Andrew is a warrior, fighting for the gospel in Australia. And so he is going to fly in from Australia, and he's speaking at 2 churches, and then he's going to come join us on that Wednesday night. And I'm telling you, it's going to be absolute fire. And apparently we only have international people speak on Wednesday night. It's a new trend for us. So last year was Jamie. This year is Andrew. Next year is the Pope. So just kidding. Some of you will get that joke more than others. Okay. I think that's it. Guys, I love you all. And thank you. Thank you for being a part of what God is doing at Redemption. It's amazing. It's super fun. And God's also changing people's lives. People are getting baptized. Families are changing. Marriages are being healed. There's incredible things happening. And every single one of us get to be a part of it. But from my spot, for Lindsay and I, for our kids, thank you. We love you guys. We are honored to be a part of this. We're honored to tell people all the time, we love Redemption Church. We love Northwest Ohio, and we love what God is doing here, and we love what the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years are going to bring. And so thank you guys for doing it with us. We're grateful.
Thanks for joining us for today's message. For more information, you can visit Experience Redemption on Instagram or Facebook for updates, service times, and ways you can get connected. Want to partner and support the work of Redemption Church? You can give online at experienceredemption.com/giveonline to explore your giving options. We also stream services on both YouTube and Facebook Live, so be sure to join us and share your redemption experience. Thanks for checking out the podcast. We will see you soon.